Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video is my tribute to Donnie Iris and the Cruisers' 1980 album, Back on the Street. The history of the Cruisers goes back to around the mid-70s. Donnie Iris had been a member of a band out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called the Jaggers, who had a hit with the song The Rapper. Donnie eventually left the Jaggers and joined a band from Ohio called Wild Cherry. It was there that he met keyboardist Mark Avsek. Now, if you're not familiar with the band Wild Cherry, odds are that you are familiar with their 1976 hit, Play That Funky Music. Donnie and Mark hit it off and formed a friendship that lasts to this day. Wild Cherry disbanded in 1979, but Mark and Donnie were already working on a new project, a collection of songs that would become the 1980 release Back on the Streets. I can still remember borrowing this album from my brother's record collection and losing myself in these songs. The album starts off strong with arguably their biggest hit ever, Aaliyah. This song just rocks. There was something different about the sound of this song, and really the album as a whole. In my opinion, it blurs the lines between being rock and roll, new wave, and R&B. While every song on this album is solid, my personal favorites are Aaliyah, Back on the Streets, Agnes, and Too Young to Love. The album reached number 57 on the Billboard 200 in 1981. While Donnie Iris and the Cruisers have released a number of follow-up albums, it's Back on the Streets that I find myself listening to on a regular basis. It's probably in my top 10 favorite albums of all time. Donnie Iris and the Cruisers maintain a loyal following in Pittsburgh and in Ohio to this day. Although Donnie is now in his mid-70s, he can still belt out a tune better than most anyone. Okay, here's a true story. The first time I flew from my home state of Utah to see them in concert, it was mid-February. The Cruisers were to play the Hard Rock Cafe in Cleveland. As my wife and I drove out of the Cleveland airport through streets that were quickly piling up with snow, I turned on the radio, and literally the first thing I heard was the DJ saying that the Donnie Iris concert had been canceled due to the storm. As you can probably imagine, I was heartbroken. I sent a message to Donnie and the Cruisers on their local social media page, and can you believe it, Mark Avsek sent me a message saying that if I ever made it back to either Pittsburgh or Cleveland to see them again, to let him know, and he would arrange to have passes for me for the show. How cool is that? I've been lucky enough to see Donnie and the Cruisers live 2 times, once in Pittsburgh on a river cruise ship, and the other time in Cleveland, Ohio, playing with the Cleveland Contemporary Youth Orchestra. It's easy to see why these guys are still able to draw a crowd after all these years, and why Donnie Iris has earned the title King Cool. One last thing that you might find interesting. Donnie and Mark found themselves the target of a lawsuit alleging that they had plagiarized the song Aaliyah. Mark Avsek knew that he hadn't, and he refused to settle. They fought the lawsuit and won. However, this experience encouraged Mark to pursue a law degree where he specializes in intellectual property law. There's a great TED Talk out there where Mark tells this story. It's well worth your time to find it and watch that video. I'd love to read your comments. Have you ever heard this album, and if so, what do you think about it? What is your favorite album by the Cruisers? Have you ever been lucky enough to see them live? Last, if you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I mostly make videos where I talk about music, movies, TV shows, and other things from the 70s and 80s. Thanks, and have a great day.